Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Friday afternoon. Today is 7/14. 7 is half of 14. So if you were in QAnon, you would kind of come up with some weird conspiracy for that. But since we're not in QAnon, I'm just going to say it's July 14th. That means it is time for Right Wing Insanity Report. I'm Tina-Desiree Berg reporting for Status Coup. We are live today. Lots to talk about, but before we get started, I want to bring my guest in. Zach Roberts is a photojournalist and a journalist that covers right-wing extremism on the East Coast. He's been on the show before. He's also worked with Greg Palast on his True the Vote documentary, lots of other good things. So welcome to the show, Zach. It's great to have you back.
Great to be back.
So right off the top, I want to get to this brewery thing, but let's start with, because it's a wild, funny story. Let's start with Moms of Liberty. They had their national conference 2 weeks ago, I guess. You were there live covering it. So we're going to go through some of the things that you saw, some video that you shot. But I think Moms for Liberty is kind of a new group for a lot of folks. We talked about the Moms for Liberty 2 weeks ago because I had brought up the fact that they had posted a copy of their newsletter on Facebook, and they had quoted Adolf Hitler on it. Then they took the newsletter down. Then they issued an apology, re-uploaded it without the Hitler quote. But there are still people defending this wildness. They were trying to basically say things like, oh, well, we should pay attention to what these guys had to say so we don't repeat the mistakes. But no, that's nonsense. That's not what you do if you want to criticize Adolf Hitler. If you want to criticize Adolf Hitler, you criticize him. You don't quote him and just leave it there for everybody to read. I mean, that's just
you don't put it on the front page of your newsletter and site and everything like that. You put it within a context. Like you can use it's useful signs. Like if you go to, I'm sure if you go to the Holocaust museums across the country, I'm sure they quote Hitler somewhere along there. But it's the context that's important. If you're trying to use that to attack your leftist enemies, that's not that works, which is what many of the speakers throughout the entire day defended quoting Hitler in that way, and also defended this organization. So
exactly. So before we get into it, though, I wanted to play a clip from, there's an Orange County Moms of Liberty chapter. So this is actually a group I've paid attention to for quite a while. You often see Proud Boys at their events. They were very prominent in the anti-vaccination scene. They were against mandates in the state. So again, they got involved in a lot of the wedge issues. But just to give folks some background so they know a little bit more about this organization, I do want to play this clip from the Orange County chapter. This was filmed in Huntington Beach about a year ago at an anti-mandate rally that they were having there at Huntington Beach Pier. Let's play that, Colin.
We appreciate you coming out. And I'm sure.
That's the wrong one. Later. That's about the brewery.
A different mom for some sort of liberty. So we'll get to that.
That's a different Karen.
Leslie, but yes.
Colin, can you find it? Hang on, he's searching.
How many of you here have heard of Moms for Liberty? All right, we are here to raise awareness for what we're doing for our mission. So let me explain a little bit about who we are. So Moms for Liberty is a nationwide organization. We have over 160 county-based chapters in about 32 states with 70,000 members and growing every day. So we are looking to unify parents and educate, empower them to fight back on things that are happening in the K-12 system. Obviously, most of you are here today because you've become awake. You've noticed that things have been brewing for a long, long time, and they've come to a head. We're seeing it in the K-12 mandates. But the truth is, the roots go so far deep and have been there growing for so long, and we were all asleep at the wheel. Parents let things get out of control, and it's our job to rescue it before it's too late. How does that sound? You like our mission? Okay. All right. Thank you. So my husband tells me, as Heather mentioned, he escaped persecution based on his family's religion. He came here as a child and sought the American dream. He now owns multiple businesses here in Orange County. We partner together on every mission and value that we share. And he told me this morning that there's an old Turkish proverb that he heard growing up that says, "The forest was shrinking, but the trees kept voting for the axe. for the axe was clever and convinced the trees that because his handle was made of wood, he was really one of them. So these things have come like a thief in the night and really taken hold. The government comes with mandates promising to save you. They're one of you. They have your best interest at heart. They believe they have your children's best interest at heart even more than you. So it starts by offering safety and protection, and those ideals sound nice, but not at the cost of our liberty and our freedoms. Amen. Thomas Paine says, those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it. There's a lot that's being sacrificed by people who are leading groups like the Unity Project, Moms on the Ground, Moms for Liberty, Firefighters for Freedom. These are people standing up and putting their entire careers and their family businesses and everything on the line. And what we would like to ask of you guys today is please join us. We have to transition from speaking up and get off Twitter and get on the ground, boots on the ground. We have to be effective.
All right, a couple of things, Zach. So just so people have the correct framing for what's going on here, this was an anti-mandate rally in Huntington Beach. So, you have the same themes that you're going to hear over and over again, that they're fighting to take something back, that their freedoms are being trampled, they're being prosecuted, that the parents is used as a monolithic term. So all parents obviously agree with them. They think like they do, even if they're in a minority. But, also, I want to point out at this particular moment in time in Huntington Beach, there were options. If you didn't want to get a vaccination, you could stay home and do learning online. Huntington Beach schools had that option open, but if you were going back to class, you had to, obviously be vaccinated. I mean, mandated school vaccinations aren't just about the individual, it's about the whole group. They're trying to keep diseases at bay. This isn't about treading on your liberty. It's about the fact that you can't be self-absorbed. Yeah, it's a very self-absorbed position to not understand or see that, or to frame it as something other than that. It's not personal liberty, right? But again, you know what? Your freedoms aren't being trampled. If that's the route you choose, fine. Then you stay at home and watch the online Zoom classes. That's a choice you've made. You're given a choice, right? Not everybody else should be put in danger because of your choices. So having said that, I just want people to understand what she was discussing there in that argument. But I think it does give a really good background of the type of organization it is. So they come across as sort of more centrist, moderate Republicans, except that they support some, more radicalized wedge issues. But now, a full year later, and I think the makings were always there, they are becoming much more radicalized. In fact, the Southern Poverty Law Center has now said that they're an extremist group. So what are some of the worst things that you saw at the conference?
Well, I mean, one thing, if you watch that video, all the signs are there, like the signs of like who they are. You have a conscious decision. One thing that Moms for Liberty is they're very smart when it comes to what they present forward. I mean, first off, just calling your group Moms for Liberty, even though half the speakers on stage, the person that for the last 2 years have gotten the sword of liberty that they call it, or something like that. I think it's like Liberty Sword or something. They literally have a sword they hand people. It's a very interesting thing. But they're very, very conscious about their image and the way they push forward. And that's how they've gotten where they've gotten, is by being like, we're just a mom's group. Come on, we can't be racist. Your mom. And like,
we're just a drinking group.
Yeah. And it's just like, never mind. It's like, 99% white moms, 99% moms from a certain type of momdom. Anybody who's probably been a teacher or whatever knows exactly the type of mom that would join this group. But like, so first off, America First is a flag that was behind that, behind the speaker. You had a Appeal to Heaven flag that was behind them, which is I think we've discussed ad nauseum on the back. And just the messaging that they push has always been to be a mom that just gets involved in their school board, like PTA moms, is a heroic fight. It's the same messaging that every single QAnon, every single cult gives. And it's just like, it's just getting involved in your community. It's I guess it's heroic if you want to be like, because so few people do get involved. And it's good that people get involved, but not when you're saying, well, I don't believe this and everyone else needs to believe it. that way, which is
their opinion is a minority opinion, but they're acting as if it's a majority opinion, which is really problematic. And they're also acting again like there's no other choices for them. The group here in Orange County has also been involved with the push for privatization of our public schools, our education system, right? Supporting charter schools, supporting vouchers for Christian schools or religious schools, like things that we don't have in place now. So there's definitely, and there's big money coming into that, right? So let's be clear, there's always dark money involved in a lot of these supposed grassroots movements, right, so to speak. So that's I mean that's part of it.
AstroTurf movements, which is the term I always love. I mean, one thing that also is really messaging behind is like basically if you can't find a school, then it's really good to teach, is to teach your kid at home. Homeschooling is a really, really big thing that this movement is pushing forward because it's the only way to be sure, you never know, because we start, I mean, anytime that you get like, follow conspiracy groups or, cultist type groups, is that not saying that they're a cultist type group. I don't think they're that like level of organized with that. Like, they don't have like a strong leader, but I mean, they're an organization that has done a really good job at building up their chapter leaders, which, like, according to SPLC at this point, they claim to have 285 chapters in 45 states with a membership of over 100,000 people. And which is, I mean, you always got to like take things with a grain of salt. I mean, let's just say the in Philadelphia, which is probably really a good centership because they're really strong in Pennsylvania, and kind of a couple of those the states like the Mid-Atlantic states, is they still had some problems filling a 700 seat room, and that's with their own membership, and they had a huge award ceremony that had like 100 people that were nominated and everything like that. So it's it's like you sign up for things, and how much you get involved is a big question. That whether or not they're able to like build their own rallies, but they are really good at working with other groups, and that sort of thing. But I mean, like I was saying before, like one of the big worries is that they are pushing this idea of homeschooling, which is again like this, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You can do a good job homeschooling. I'm a big fan of the public school thing. I think it's. I
was worried, like, how do you teach subjects like, I don't know, I'm going to go for the really extreme hard one, calculus or something. If you don't have a knowledge of that, I would struggle if I was trying to homeschool my kids, I would struggle with this stuff.
We don't need to worry about that because calculus is not the sort of homeschooling. I mean, there's also, because I mean, like, there's been lots of great articles written
even
about
geometry, maybe. Who remembers their high school geometry enough to be able to give good instruction on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a type of homeschooling that they're going to do. I don't think it's necessarily like higher end math beyond multiplication, that sort of thing is not really going to be something that they're going to.
But don't they have to like pass these things through in order to get some sort of a GED or something, or is that not the end game?
I mean, certain state levels. I mean, states have different areas. I mean, the homeschooling kind of world is kind of terrifying when like what kids don't get. I don't know enough good about educations.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about it. That's why I'm asking all these questions. And like the groups that were there, you had the groups that were present in the basically like the tabling room where they have different tables and different groups or whatever. You had everything from the Heritage Foundation to Robert Kennedy Jr.'s anti-vax, mad. Well, he had pulled out. He was a scheduled speaker, and he had pulled out, right?
Yeah, which is actually genuinely surprising that he didn't show up. It seems like, especially the tack that he's gone over in the last year. As somebody who I'm always forward, I used to work with him. I have I don't know where it is now. It's like I had a comic book about voting rights that I did with him and Greg Palast. He used to be a great person on voters, talking about voter suppression, and also the environment. And now he's a climate denier, which is honestly like really just kind of like, okay, well, we're just kind of done with everything that you've spent the last 40 years of your life doing. And then we're just going to
I think he's a prime example of somebody that's been red pilled, right? Somebody that is disillusioned with the Democratic Party and here's the thing, there's always good reasons to be disillusioned with the Democratic Party. I understand all the root causes, but sometimes people get pulled into these other things, which are actually markedly worse, but we'll table that for another day.
Yeah, I mean that's you could do an entire show on
exactly
Kennedy Jr. And I'd rather not. So I'd rather not. I'm hoping that he will fade away as quick as humanly possible. Because it seems that I don't know if you've read he also has some gas problems of his own, it seems, according to the Page 6 story that just came out about his last.
I haven't seen that. Okay.
Yes. Anyway, yeah, do a quick Google. It's an interesting story. But I don't want to really I don't want to be talking about it. But yeah, but I mean, like every single person that came up commented on talking about the Southern Poverty Law Center and them being called a terror. I actually haven't seen anyone being called a terrorist organization.
No, they weren't called a terrorist organization, just an extremist one.
Yeah, exactly. But I
don't think anyone's accusing them of terrorism at this point. I mean, if they want to do an act of terrorism, that would terrorism change
maybe,
it.
but not actually. Yeah, but it's interesting because it's like every single speaker came on, from Governor DeSantis to James Lindsay to Dennis Pilger, and for some reason I always forget his name, and all of them were like, hey, I heard you guys are a bunch of terrorists, I heard you guys are a bunch of extremists, yay, big cheers from everybody. They have fully embraced this, it seems,
of course,
which I think that it shows that they're now in the kind of the Proud Boys stages of this group, which again, you can search their connections with the Proud Boys, which have been written about extensively as well, but they have now kind of gotten to their numbers where they need to be, and now they can stop just being a fun drinking club or a mom's, book clatch or whatever, and now they can be what they're really going to be, which is a shocking powerhouse. I mean, they had 3 different presidential candidates speak, or 4 different presidential candidates speak. They had basically a whole bunch of people who are the real power players and real like powerful people that are in
those movements
that are in the conservative right. I mean, like I think that's one thing that we don't do is we don't talk about like this about the Dennis Pilger network of
Prager?
radio and Prager. Yeah. Not Prager. Yeah.
I got you.
Prager, his network and how powerful he is. And the fact that like he spoke for quite a while and talked about his love of the group and everything like that. And that he was
in fact,
honored
we have a clip of that if we want to play it. Should we play that?
Sure. Yeah.
They go, well, you're a Jew. Do you know that they quoted Hitler? So I said to them, I'm just curious. Do you think this Jew or any Jew would speak for an organization that was pro-Hitler? Jews out of your mind? So this is I learned now what the...
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I answer his question?
Yeah. I mean, and again, like, and it's just like, are they necessarily pro-Hitler? I don't think so. Because,
no,
like,
but they're pro-fascism.
But
I think
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They agree with a lot of the messaging that came before the genocide. And because I mean, you have like denial of people's existence. I mean, one of the largest themes throughout the entire 2 days that I covered it was trans people don't exist. It's not a thing. It's a made up thing. And so, which is a problem when you start going, well, this ethnic group doesn't exist. Like that is a precursor to bad things happening because it allows
100%.
It allows erasure in the same way that I always blank on the radio racist that was at CPAC. That guy who was just like, well, trans culture and everything like that is something that we can just get that we can get rid of. And it's like, oh, well, it's like, well, you can't get rid of a culture. It's like, oh, we can get rid of Jewish culture. Like, I think that what does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
What does that mean to most people? And what kind of message does that send?
They also sort of try to deny the biological factors that are involved in all of this too. Or in cases of, cultural arguments, what undergirds race realism could be brought into the conversation as well. So no, I mean, none of this is necessarily logical from our perspective, but it's all driven by the same kind of underlying anger towards the government, othering of others because of their position in the power structure in the country, political reasons by, both parties, neither one is doing anything good for us. And so the messaging that's appealing to them, I think, becomes that, right? You guys are the victim, but instead of addressing the real corporate structures that are causing the problems, the money at the top, right? Because a lot of these, AstroTurf movements get money from those individuals and those groups. They're telling you to other somebody else and to hate them or to blame them or to, try to, have them erased from the culture, so to speak. So yeah, that's a common theme.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody pointed out that just 20 years ago, Mrs. Doubtfire happened, and the movie actually ends with Robin Williams in drag, teaching, basically doing reading a book to school
drag
kids.
Queen story hour,
and no one cared. I don't remember.
It literally ended with drag queen story. Yeah, nobody cared about this. It's been drag queen story hour has been going on for decades, but for whatever reason, I think it's driven by a lot of homophobic stuff.
It's a back way.
Yeah,
it's a back way of attacking anyone that you don't like anyway. It's attacking feminism. It's a back way of attacking. It's also a back way of attacking women. If you actually watch some of these things, if you go to a Moms for Liberty event, it's very pro. Well, mom can be a school activist, but not much, that's what she can do. And because all of the big speakers, the award winners and stuff like that, or the people that are awarded the Sword of Liberty or whatever, they're all men, which is also just seems where it's who gets the Sword of Liberty? Both last year was DeSantis, and this year it was another wealthy man. And another older man whom name I'm blanking out again. But if you watch everything, it's they don't have women coming out and speaking. They have people, people like James Lindsay.
Patriarchal.
They're not bringing it up, and
So I want to also call it the clip that I want to say, this is Moms for Liberty, where they're cheering for the quoting Hitler thing. I want to play this really quickly. It's maybe 19-second clip. She's one of the...
I don't know what to say. There is always a bridge. There is always a reason. There's always a reason why something happens. Right? Yes. One of our moms in a newsletter posts Hitler. Woo! I stand with that mom.
How do they think that comes across? I stand with the mom that quoted Hitler in the newsletter.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
what context does that come? There's literally no context in which that statement makes sense. None.
Yeah. I mean, especially
you could watch the whole hour around that entire thing, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing that the far right does way better than the left does, which is the solidarity. I mean, they will stand by anybody. Because they know that they can, they learn from Trump and they learn from all of the acolytes there that you just run through it. You just run through it. Don't apologize. Right. Just keep
tweet
moving.
Through it.
And then also say, oh no, they're attacking us. That's what they're doing. I quoted Hitler, but they're attacking us, and they're attacking us for all the wrong reasons and everything like that. And we're going to quietly remove that quote, but we're still going to stand by it. Overall.
Even though they did initially apologize, so there must have been a moment when they were like, maybe we messed up.
Yeah. I mean,
you did. You messed up. You should have left that alone. I mean, one thing,
but they love talking about because everybody Mao is compared to the far left. Mao is compared to the left. Every Stalin is an equivalent to AOC. You have all of these kind of. Anybody who committed, a large murder in history is on the.
Yeah, you know what? I've noticed that.
It's never right-wing ideology. Right. Never does it. It's the biggest murder, which is always the big theme. It's why are we talking about Hitler all the time? We should be talking about the USSR and all of its murderers. And that's the continual drift. We can't talk about that. We're going to again combine Stalin and Bernie Sanders are the same people.
But wildly, you're right. They categorize authoritarian right-wingers. There's no universe in which Pol Pot and Hitler are right or left. They're right-wingers.
Yeah.
That's not even up for debate. But yeah, I saw that a few times. I'm like, wait, did this guy just say Pol Pot was a what now?
No, but I mean, one thing that they are really good, because like I've been going through, I'm working on like a very long thread of like all the pull quotes from this, because I took video of all of it. And one of the big problems with this is that, unlike CPAC, where everybody was going for that media hit, they were going for that clip that was going to go viral on Twitter and hate it. They are very good about contextualizing things so that you have to go, okay, well, let's actually explain when they're talking about Hitler, when they're talking about when they're talking about Mao, this is what they really mean. When they're putting this quote, when they're quoting Thomas Paine, when they're doing things like this is what they're raising up and really wanting to make a point out of, and you have to contextualize it, and that doesn't work in a tweet, unfortunately. And that's something that the Moms for Liberty is still very, very good at. And I think that has something to do with the fact that they haven't reached the point where they can just, they're still trying to gather numbers. They're still trying to pull just, your average mom who is a little weirded out by like, why is gender queer being taught in schools or something? And like, if you just follow local news, like I live in the Hampton Roads area. Virginia Beach has tried to ban a couple books out of the Barnes and Noble, not even the. And so you have like, there's a whole bunch of school board issues that are going around here, and different, because it's the center. This is where Liberty University is. This is where Pat Robertson used to live. Sadly, we lost him in the past month. And you can read through the lines on that one if you want to.
Yeah.
But it's that they're building the numbers of just the moms that are like, wait a minute, I hear it on the local news that they're teaching pornography in 5th grade, and it's just like,
which is not happening at all.
Which is obviously it's not happening. It's like obviously it's not happening, and but they're able to pull people in that way by bad news stories on the, whether it be just bad local news, but also right-wing media, pull the people into that world, and then grab you on all the other stuff, because then once you start closing off on reading anything else other than either your local news, which everybody who follows local news knows that like there's only two things: whatever shooting happened, and then whatever is the thing that some usually some right-wing group really cares about which is about the school board, and that's 80% of what at least my local news seems to be about here in Norfolk, Virginia. And so once they pull people in, they got you on everything else, and they can start, going, oh, hey, did you read this? Did you read this message from the Heritage Foundation that this is what they're teaching kids? They're literally showing kids pedophilia books. And I've read genderqueer. There's not pornography in it.
No, there's not. But Zach, let's talk about that for a second, because I do think this is part of the problem. I fundamentally understand from talking to a lot of these folks that they absolutely do believe what they think is factual and true. They're not playing here. They do believe these things. Like the guy that tells me that it was Antifa that did January 6th and not the Proud Boys. Like I could not convince him otherwise that was just not true. It doesn't matter what the reality is or the facts are, right? So that is part of the problem. I fundamentally do believe that these folks think Pol Pot is a leftist, even though that's ridiculous. They believe it, right? So you have to sort of start from that position if you want to try to understand where these guys are coming from. This is part of being in post-truth America. And it starts a lot of the time with lies on the internet, the real fake news that's out there putting this stuff out. They know it's not entirely reality. They don't care. They get clicks, right? It's about making money. So there's so many things that are contributing to this. And the unfortunate reality is the victims of all this are the people that fall into these traps and don't see it. And that sort of is now affecting everybody, right? It's become a viral infection almost. Yeah. Let's do the Dennis. You brought up Dennis Prager. Let's do the Dennis Prager clip. We haven't played that one yet, have we? No. Did we do Dennis Prager?
We played one.
We played one. Okay, I think is there another one? Am I crazy?
I only saw one.
Okay, maybe I'll watch the longer one. All right, what's our next one?
It's a little longer, but we got the compilation. Do you want to
let's play the compilation. Let's do that.
Teach them that there's such a thing as being born in the wrong body. Of course, they're going to believe you because they're children. These kids who end up in these gender clinics are our most vulnerable children. About half of these children are on the autism spectrum. 35% of the kids at the Tavistock, which was the biggest gender clinic in the world in England, had moderate to severe autism. If you include the more mild cases, it goes about 50%. I talked to hundreds of parents. Testosterone is being given to girls, 12, 13 years old. Chloe Cole, who a lot of you might know, was given puberty blockers and testosterone at the age of 13. Doctors at Kaiser Permanente cut off her breast when she was 50. She's suing Harmeet Dillon, who was running for the RNC chair as her lawyer. She'll do a job. A billboard that said, "I love J.K. Rowling." It lasted a day. It got ping bombed overnight. We have identity politics going crazy in this world. I decided to take on my own identity, which is that of a dad. And a dad today is a human male who protects his kids from gender ideology. I've got these same signs for moms.
And it's sad that it comes to this, but I guarantee you Florida's better than California, New York, all those by country. Yet parents in Florida have had to blow the whistle on inappropriate materials in our schools. They have these books like Gender Queer, which has hardcore pornography, talks about pedophilia. You have a book in Florida that was found in one of the school districts instructing middle schoolers how to use sex apps on their phones. So this is totally inappropriate. And so parents blow the whistle, and obviously no one defends this stuff, and so it gets removed. Now, the left and the media tries to say that means you're banning books. Well, let me tell you something. In Florida, you can buy any of those books that you want, and there's not been a single book that's been banned. Schools, though, have to curate what's in a library, what's in a classroom, and you make decisions about that. You may have one book on George Washington. There's 50 others you could have. That doesn't mean you're banning the other 50. You're making a judgment about what's appropriate. And so to use tax dollars to bring in that type of garbage into our schools is fundamentally wrong.
So you guys are under attack right now. You may not know, on the other hand, I don't know if you keep up with the social media like I do, that you trended, Moms for Liberty trended on Twitter yesterday to almost 16,000 I have a profile. I'm an extremist now. You've got this whole thing, this whole, fake news media farce trying to say that you support Nazis, which is absolutely the most preposterous thing I've ever heard in my life. And there's a reason for this, and I told Tiffany this, there's a reason for this, and you all need to know this. The reason that you are under these crazy attacks, the reason the Department of Justice is naming you as domestic extremists, the terrorists, the reason that the FBI is calling some of you when you go to school board meetings, the reason that they are trying to smear you so desperately before this beautiful summit is because they know something. They know that mothers, and probably mothers alone, will do anything for their kids. And more importantly, by 1952, every teacher in China had been re-educated. They weren't allowed back in the classrooms until after they had been re-educated. For 2 years, there was virtually no education in China because he was having all the teachers re-educated. They shut down the schools for 2 years and came back with a whole new program. Does that sound familiar? And so in 1957, 1958, Mao was kind of at the peak of his power. And that was a traditional military coup he staged in 49. He took over at the barrel of a gun. He's now the big dictator of China, 1957. He's at the top of his game. And he launches a program that if we had anti-communist education in this country, which every one of you should be agitating for in all 50 states, you would know it's called the Great Leap Forward. We have a Great Leap backwards today called the Great Reset, which is a little ominous.
Where do we start? What's this obsession with Mao in China in the 1950s? Is this guy, was he trying to make the argument that when I listened to this, my first thought is he's trying to make the argument we shut down the schools because of COVID and that schooling wasn't happening, but re-educate. Like, I couldn't quite understand that leap.
Hey, Mao and communist China shut down the schools to like reboot for the Great Reset. And that, hey, we closed schools for 2 years too, even though we didn't close schools for 2 years.
Yeah, we actually didn't. We just moved it online. Like, what are they talking about?
We also, we never stopped teaching. We also, like, most schools didn't even close for, more than a couple months in any way, shape, or form in a lot of states.
Yeah, it's a weird, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to like blend in a bunch of things that people know enough about that maybe they learned something about in school, or at least they've learned that Mao is bad, which I'm not gonna fight that one. But they know that Mao's communist and that China is still our biggest threat, and that China has indoctrination camps, and what happened. Basically they find any genocide they can find and twist it into what happened. I mean, this is what Alex Jones has been doing for the last like 2 decades and a half.
I mean, they're also quite dishonest about a lot of the things that they say about these other countries too. Yeah. There's usually a nuanced thing going on there, but nobody wants to explore that. Yeah,
I mean, James Lindsay is probably the most out person speaking about what he's actually saying that everyone kind of spoke, but everybody else is like very, either they're attacking us because we have these because we're just moms that are trying to get involved with our kids in school, and that's the only reason they're attacking us, because the teachers are the ones that are the basically Mao's troops that are trying to indoctrinate our children. And those are the teachers that are these evil people that are all trying to do this. I'm like, as a person who comes from a family of teachers, like,
wild.
The idea that any of these teachers have time to write.
No,
well, they got to write their student plans. They got to write their grade some papers. They gotta work 8 hours a day. They come home to their tiny apartment because they can't afford anything, and that's when, between 9 and 11 p.m. is right when they start writing their indoctrination plans. And they start working through how they're going to get your kids to believe that they're transgender and hate you. And that's, I hate to say it, that's what all these, it's such an, the conference is basically an okay boomer kind of entire thing, which is why do my kids hate me? And it's is it because I'm a right-wing nutcase who tries to control every part of their lives? Or is it because of the teachers? I think it's because of the teachers.
Well, I think part of it, I agree. Part of it, I think, is also, let's talk about the Christian nationalism aspect of this. A lot of these folks would prefer if they were getting indoctrinated with Christianity. I don't think that's a crazy statement I just made. That's what they want. But somehow the
subtext of Christianity it's first off, it's soul. There's no other religion that was discussed in 2 days.
Yeah, that's clear. This isn't about religious.
No other religion exists. I mean, Judaism is acceptable when it's Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager.
I'm gonna start calling him that though now.
I know. I've been messing it up for there. People are like, "Who's Dennis Prager?" But Dennis Prager, it's acceptable there. But I mean, anybody who follows Dennis Prager knows that he teaches Christianity. He doesn't teach Judaism. He doesn't. He's not. I mean, but yeah.
He might have been a converted individual. I don't know. There was this whole Jews for Jesus.
I genuinely wouldn't be surprised. I
don't know for a fact, but it wouldn't surprise me either.
But he definitely doesn't. But I mean, but a lot of, most of the, it's the same thing with kind of any Jewish figure that's on the far right that has a broadcast and is constantly talking. They're not teaching Judaism. They're not treating. They're talking constantly about Christian hell and all of because they're talking to their audience. They're not, and they want people to always forget that they're Jewish. One thing that I will give to Dennis Prager is that he actually opened with it, that he's, at least comes from a family that is Jewish. And that is actually genuinely surprising. But again, it's acceptable if you're a conservative Jewish person, but it's not, obviously, it's Marxist Jewish Marxism basically redone again, and that's what basically what, if you're a leftist, that's where that really comes from. So
okay, so I had to look this up. So apparently Dennis Prager is some sort of messianic this is a thing. So Dennis Prager in 9 questions people ask about Judaism writes, why did Jews not accept Jesus as the Messiah? Judaism does not believe that Jesus was the Messiah because he did not fulfill any messianic prophecies. The Messiah will bring universal peace. It has been obvious for 1900 years and the blah, blah, blah. He goes on and on. I don't know. There's a whole page on him on the Jews for Jesus. We'll have to look into this, but it would not surprise me.
Yeah.
Would not surprise me. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's table that one for another day. So what were some of the other highlights or the main points in that whole entire thing that you thought were important?
Well, I mean, again, it's the subtle conversation of that, we have to be worried about, basically Marxism coming in. Every single person that came on stage was just making up thing, making you fear, which is, what Donald Trump, what everybody does is, again, they're, DeSantis is talking about how, books aren't being banned. They're lying to you about that. Never mind, books are. You can still literally talk to any teacher. But again, the teachers are lying to you. So you can't believe what the teachers are saying. You can only believe what Ron DeSantis is saying about what's happening in Florida. As he opened his speech from the free state of Florida, which is a weird, worrying messaging that I've been seeing quite a bit, because that used to be people used to refer to the free state of Texas, which is basically a sovereign citizen term, which is something that even Alex Jones used to hate when people would say, like, I'm from the free state of Texas, because he'd be like, oh God, it's somebody who believes that, as long as your name is capital on your driver's license, then it, laws don't apply to you. Or something like that. And so it's like,
when you just make up your own laws.
Yeah, but it's weird because I've actually started seeing that messaging other places now. And so that's kind of a worrying thing that a presidential candidate and a current governor is picking up sovereign citizen language, which I don't know if he had somebody feed it to him that it would sound cool. But I mean, everybody wants to just build fear that every single school is just the teachers are pushing pornography on your kids and trying to indoctrinate you. I mean, at the start of the video there, you had Billboard Chris, who is just a general harasser. He's taken the kind of Billboard idea of basically of the anti-abortion movements, where they'd show up and have vile things on their signs to get you to react. And that's what he does, is he tries to get people to react.
In fact, let me stop you there. I've actually met Billboard Chris, filmed Billboard Chris. He showed up at a anti-trans. So the Children's Hospital of Orange County had a pediatrician conference. It wasn't even a trans thing entirely. It was a pediatrician thing, but there were a couple of tracks for some trans gender affirming care kind of thing that they've been, doing for years. They're on the forefront of researching this stuff. So these guys showed up to have this protest in front of this doctor's conference. I spoke, several of the doctors I spoke to, none of them wanted to be filmed. I understand why, but they were like, we don't understand why these people are here. What are they doing? They don't even, then, they were reading some of their signs. I'm like, these people don't even understand what it is that we do. I'm like, no, they don't. You're right. Anyway, but Colin, let's play a little bit of that so people can get a background idea of this Chris guy, and we'll talk about him a little more.
Which clip is that for Chris?
The Billboard Chris one that I sent you to play.
Give me one moment.
We have no power over you. We have come to warn you. Warning. That on the Bible, or you have the God of your imagination. Jesus Christ said you touch unless you repent.
Protect trans youth! Protect trans youth! Protect trans youth! Protect trans youth!
All anyway, so you saw he has a little film crew that tags along with him, and he gets in the faces of people and tries to film like, clips that he thinks are going to be viral in some capacity, I would say. Anyway, so Billboard Chris, so he's now making a name for himself because he's out here on the front lines. If you take it from the Moms of Liberty point of view, right? Yeah. He's out there on the front lines fighting against the trans activists.
His entire presentation was basically talking about how he's been continually attacked. He has a broken arm. He has all these things. The police don't even defend him and don't care about him.
Give me a break.
And he's able to just persevere because suddenly he started caring about this issue. When again, like, he is just solely obsessed with this idea that, like, again, kids are being indoctrinated into, as he says, gender ideology.
Yeah.
Which again is just trying to make anything that people go like, hey, maybe there's a reason why you don't feel comfortable in your own skin, and giving people an option other than Jesus. Which
right.
is, the only option that they want to do is just like, you need to find God and need to get closer to God. And that's how you can solve the problems that I've always felt.
But not God. It has to be the Christian God.
Oh yeah, right? very
very
specific. I mean, I very quickly, I have a story that actually I was in the lobby of the bar of the hotel doing my work. Sometimes I forget that I have a bunch of stickers from like a really great organization called Left Coast Right Watch on the back of there. But anyway,
we've had Abner on the show.
Yes, Abner's fantastic. But I had helped a guy who was very loud with his cell phone the day before, because I used to work at Best Buy many years ago, and like for some reason, if somebody's there, I do it. And so he came up to me that day and was like, started talking to me, and I was so tired and exhausted of covering the stuff that I was just like, I'm going to be honest. And I started talking to him. I was like, oh, how do you feel about Biden? He was like, how do you feel about Biden? And I was like, I'm not a fan. to say the least. And how do you feel about Trump? Do you think Trump's going to win? And I said, yes, Trump's going to win. And I had this entire long conversation with him where I thought we had like a good rapport. I'd helped the guy for no apparent reason the day before. Like, he was just like, he was very grateful about it and honest. And like, he had asked me, it's like, oh, do you go to church or whatever? And I'm like, well, I'm what I call myself is a New Deal Catholic. Which is usually, he's like, what does that mean? And I started explaining, and he cut me off, of course. But for me, that means basically a progressive Catholicism, which is something I used to be. I'm more agnostic now, but at least. And but he ended the entire talk when he finally, after 40 minutes of him like talking to me in this thing, he walked away and he's like, I hope you find Jesus. I hope you get Jesus in your life and, solve some of your problems or whatever. And I was just like, I had never once said that I was agnostic or an atheist or anything like that. I told him I'm Catholic, but that's not good enough for him. And that's,
no, it's not though. It's
really
not good enough, right?
Like a moment where I'm like, oh, this is my Tom Friedman talking to the cab driver moment.
Right.
Where like, I'm like, oh, this explains everything that I just had. Like, I was a genuinely nice person. He knew nothing about me other than I helped him out. I was a good person to him, and that we disagree on some things, but we agree on the important thing that Trump is probably going to win in 2024 if nothing changes. And that's all he cared about. But then it still wasn't good enough that Christianity, like my version of Christianity, which is always a good reminder. There's a reason why DeSantis in the past has really tries to walk away from not emphasize that he's Catholic and not Christian, because many Christians, I won't say most, but many Christians, especially people who are in that room, don't believe Catholicism is Christianity. And that we basically are, I mean, you just got to remember that, the people, there's three groups of people that the Klan went after. They went after African Americans, they went after Jewish people, and they went after Catholics. And a lot of times it was the Catholics that, like, because there was no other people around, they went after them because as a Catholic, you're never good enough when it comes to
no. And it's also how they're able to sort of write off the group of evangelicals you're talking about. It's also how they're sort of able to write off what happened with Catholic priests and pedophilia, right? They're like, yeah, but we're not Catholic. So you'll hear them say that, which could be confusing if you're not paying attention to who's on which base. But at the same time, they have common cause, right? I mean, the Catholic Church just tradition. Let me make this really clear. Traditional Catholics, right? So these are the ones that still think Mass should be in Latin. They have they're very anti-Semitic. They're very extreme.
Mel Gibson Catholics, yes.
Mel Gibson, yes, exactly. So they are the ones that were sponsoring Church Militant. This Dodger Stadium thing a couple of weeks ago, and Although they have common cause, they have their internal arguments, right? So
yeah. And so you have people. I'm sorry, I actually forgot where I went with the rant on that.
Sorry.
Yeah, our
Billboard Chris.
Yes, I'm sorry, Billboard Chris, who again has taken everything from the anti-abortion movement, which I'm sure he has. I have to assume that he has like a strong allegiance with, considering they show up together quite a bit. He shows up places and basically harasses people, and which is the shocking thing that like I think that. I always felt like there would be a line when it comes to this, but the last 3 years of calling death threats into children's hospitals. I have a friend who worked at a hospital, children's hospital here in Norfolk, and like it was like something that they had to discuss, like that was potentially they were going to be potentially the next targeted group, and it's just like, but that was something that happened. I covered an anti-vax protest outside of a Rochester, New York children's hospital, and it was just like, is this really? This is like the screaming hate is what you really want for the children who are inside that building, and they're like, they don't care because it's their messaging, and that's it.
Yeah.
But like the Billboard Chris Elston, his talk that he had, the little portion that we had, because I mean, one thing, not to take on another side, John, but one thing that's really important, if you watch any video or if the little video clips that you would see from the Moms for Liberty conference, almost all of anything that's inside of a conference is from me, because they didn't allow us into anything other than basically the big ballroom. And that they didn't allow us to get close. They didn't allow us to interview anybody. If we did, like I got one interview with someone, an activist who hit every single bell about like people who I thought was going to be there. And basically they didn't allow us into the conferences unless we literally had minders, which is something that just I always remind, like literally had a minder. And they had three people who could mind. The first day it was 100, like over 100 members of the media that were there. The second day it was like 25. And then by the end of the day,
you're not gonna mind me. Yeah. I'd be like, no, you're not minding me. That's not happening.
But we had to literally like reach out to the PR person, text them, be like, can we go to this? And I would say there's about I think 9 different panel discussions that were happening in side rooms. Something that like at CPAC,
they don't want to be criticized. They're trying to protect.
We're always able to do it.
Yeah.
The biggest, and they were all run by the Leadership Institute, which is a far right, group of people, and they weren't allowing any press to come in, even filming just the talk, not the Q&A afterwards or whatever. And a fellow journalist, Pat LaMarche, over at the Bucks County Beacon, great journalist, was covering it there along. And she actually was basically booted from able to cover anything from the conference, because she actually just did an interview with somebody who was there, who spoke out and said, okay, like I was standing next to her when she did it. And basically they said, you can't live tweet. You can't say anything critical about the people who are in the room. You can't do whatever. And then they only gave us like the 10 minutes of the end of Billboard Chris that you saw some clips of a couple minutes ago. And then they booted us out of there before the next person came on. So the problem is that like I got to see somebody talk, a woman talking about gender ideology and about how supposedly, basically schools are trying to make kids trans. And then I got to see Billboard Chris, and those are the only 2 people that I got to see in the panels, outside of the people who were on stage, which was just like a total of like 8 people. And so like this is one of the reasons that like everybody left the second day, because there was just nothing to cover other than once DeSantis and Trump were on the first day, everybody, like half the media was just like, well, okay, then not even the wire stringer people. It's like, these people aren't worth getting, whatever, because we see what they say on YouTube, and no one, they're not large enough figures to care, but they didn't let us give any sort of inside look on what the organization is outside of those 2 people, which if I was to define what Moms for Liberty stood for based on those 2 people, I would be basically, it's an anti-trans organization, and that's literally it. And that's one of the things, because that's all that both of those 2 people talked about.
That's because that's the current thing. I mean, they were anti-vax a year ago. I think they just move from one cause to the next cause to whatever they get riled up over.
Well, somehow this is the big. I mean, this is the big thing
right now.
And we have to. I mean, again, we have to keep going, because one of the people that spoke at the conference was Gays Against Groomers. I called them in a tweet, Gays for Groomers. But the Gays Against Groomers.
Nice slip.
Yeah, it was. I was just so used to Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, whatever, Gays for Groomers. Okay.
It kind of works.
They spoke and they got big cheers and big support from that. But I mean, it's terrifying when you have groups like that come up on stage at organizations like that, because you have to know. I mean, this is like the Catholics speaking at a Nazi rally.
I agree.
They know that eventually they're coming for you.
They're coming for gay people too. They're just
tokenizing
you. Yeah, they're tokenizing you. They're going to use you as their token.
You can't. Especially as a woman in this room, what you need to do is you need to get married and reproduce and take care of your children, and that's what your job is, and that's what it is. And maybe that includes going to a PTA and caring about that, because the husband doesn't have any time for that. And so that's what the entire messaging behind this was about, which is again why you have, Dennis Prager, there, which is his entire thing. PragerU is all about that. Something that they advertise, whatever, which he's in the homes. Basically, he's in the homeschooling business. No one can really understand how he gets his funding. He doesn't have enough subscribers.
If he is what homeschooling is, I'm scared, because almost everything he puts out is just totally full of shit.
It's just completely made up. I mean, I genuinely wish that we could have, have something like that, not on the left, but on the truth side of things, because we really need someone counteracting that. I know the Gravel Institute kind of started doing that, but it lost. My understanding is it still lost steam. But yeah, so. Yeah,
I agree. All right. So that's it for Moms for Liberty. I want to move on to Norfolk Brewery. So you had a piece. This is I think 2 weeks ago that you put out. This is a wild story.
This is just this week.
Was it just okay?
Yeah, this is just all that's happened this last couple days. In the past 7 days. Yeah.
So this was interesting to me right off the top. I want to, Colin, if you can put up the Norfolk Brewer sells to transphobic veteran article. I want to put up this quote, Youngkin, you never see a governor making or releasing statements about private businesses being purchased. Who does this? Who has time for that? But I wanted to highlight this because it's wild that he did this. He announced this before even the owner did, the new owner. So Youngkin released the statement, Armed Forces Brewing recognizes that Virginia's strategic location, business-friendly climate, and strong military and veteran presence in Hampton Roads will lead to success at its new home in the city of Norfolk, and we look forward to a successful partnership. What kind of partnership? I mean, what's the quid pro quo here?
Well, they are. I haven't been able to figure out specifically. They are going to be getting some sort of financial support from the state.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a specific. That's not something I've necessarily focused yet on my reporting. But they're going to be getting some sort of financial support, and I don't know if that's just something particular for them, or that Youngkin is going to try to push, or whether there's some, small, in quotes, small business or whatever that, financial support that they're going to get. Even though, as we've since discovered, that basically they bought O'Connor Brewer, they bought the facility, the rights to the facility. It's a very kind of hazy thing. They may not actually be buying the land, because my understanding is that O'Connor Brewing doesn't actually own the building and the structure that they were leasing it. And which is again, so
they bought the business. They're going to change the name by the business.
Yeah. And so literally they're going to be firing an entire staff, which includes there's a lot of LGBT staff. I spoke to one person who is non-binary, and they're deeply worrying. They're assuming. I mean, I think that they're assuming that they're going to lose their job. Supposedly they're going to look at everyone rehiring. And so one of the big things that Youngkin pushed was he's going to bring 42 new jobs. So they're keeping the brewers because based on what I've heard, or based on what people have told me that work there, is that they know Armed Forces Brewing knows absolutely nothing whatsoever about brewing. And that basically what's something that is within the wine and beer industry, you can literally just relabel a lot of wine that you see, especially under $10 is just relabeled, like Robert Mondavi, winery or something like that. They just take their surplus, put a sticker on it and a new branding. Same thing happens in beer quite a bit, is that other brewers will do it. They'll slap a label on it. My also understanding is that everybody that's tasted their beer so far finds it terrible. I've literally never seen a review, like a beer review, saying that it's good of anything. But so basically the like new employees, like bringing new jobs to this has been so far proven as not going to happen and is a lie. The fact that the kind of the changeover is happening. O'Connor Brewing was already in the past controversial, is like basically there's a huge number of lawsuits of that it was a terrible place to work and basically harassment that happened.
That might be why they are selling the business.
Well, that was many years ago. I think one of the problems is that Norfolk is like a lot of cities that are like along the coast, is that there is a brewer basically every 6 blocks. Like I could literally go from brewery to brewery to brewery without going more than 2 blocks at a time, I think, to get to the current location of O'Connor Brewing from where I was.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. So I want to get into a little bit about why this is interesting from an extremist point of view, right? So in your article, you open with this: if a website was a person, the site would be accused of stolen valor. Yeah. But that's not the point of this article. Many companies run by veterans use that sweet patriotism to pull people into their usually mediocre product. The point here is that the company that garnered the endorsement of Governor Youngkin and Virginia delegate for Norfolk, Jackie Glass, is run by 2 openly right-wing, big lie, COVID-denying, promoting bigots. Meet Robert O'Neill, and we're going to put up some of these screenshots so people can see them better. Meet Robert O'Neill. Depending on which part of the Armed Forces Brewing website you look at, he's either the director and national brand ambassador or the director of military relations, possibly all 3. Robert is a semi-regular figure on conservative outlets and wrote a book about how he killed bin Laden called The Operator. He's also a virulent transphobe, so much so it seems to be a part of his personality. Yeah, so if folks aren't familiar with Robert O'Neill, we familiarize yourselves with this guy. Obviously, he paid for his blue check on Twitter. He's part of what I call $8 Chan. But let's put Colin, can we put up some of the screenshots that are in this article from Twitter? Yeah. So there's the first one. All right, so I have 3 daughters. Ed, pull your dick out. We're going to get a very quick MMA lesson. Obviously, the underlying tweets pro-trans.
We don't need to talk about the fact that Ed Krasenstein, who is not a liberal, is not a progressive in any way, shape, or form, just got a $25,000 paycheck from Elon Musk. So yeah, which is also interesting. So
he had it. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Ed had a banned Twitter account as well. He was reinstated by Elon Musk. Yeah, those. So let me digress for 1 second, because I want to talk about these paycheck things. This is hilarious to me. Yeah. I doubt that any of that is ad revenue money. It's ridiculous because it's like 9 people. I think he's just paying like 9 people some out of his slushy marketing fund. I mean, he's not even paying his bills on the back end. He owes rent money. He owns lots of vendors' money. And all of a sudden he's going to give out these random paychecks
to a very interesting group of people. You have basically a bunch of, you have Tim Pool and you have Isles Chong, like, and all people who have like at different points
kissed his
their minions to try to attack any of us.
100%. So, he's like $8 Chan people. His top favorite $8 Chan people. It's just a joke. Anyway, back to Robert O'Neill here. So the next one: if you ever tell me your preferred pronouns, our conversation has ended. I'm married to a woman. I love my woman. A man in a woman's swimsuit is not a woman. I'll be the guy to fight against this bullshit. Followed by my favorite one: is anyone going to stand up for women? Robert, take a seat. Take a seat. Women will stand up for women, not your patriarchal viewpoint of what you think women are. I just hate it when dudes do that. Good job, Adidas, putting a dude in women's way. All right, so everybody gets the picture here.
This is also, by the way, this screenshot, if you're looking at the screen now, is just a screen. I just screenshot 4 tweets in a row happening all at the same time. So this is that one is not a compilation of like 4 different times. They're all May 18th. I don't know what he saw on Fox News, because he's also a regular on Fox News and Newsmax. So yeah.
Right. So why this that's what I'm trying to get at. Why this matters. This isn't just some random right-wing dude in Virginia. This guy has a following. He's written books, et cetera, et cetera. So my favorite then is this one. He even got blocked by one of his favorite actors, the lefty John Cusack, for his opinion on trans people. Like, we don't know why he got blocked, but this is kind of hilarious. I'd say happy birthday, but blocked me for saying that men have penises. I mean, they do. I doubt that's what you said, Robert. I'm sure it was something much more vicious than that.
Yeah. So John Cusack is a fantastic person. So it's hard to also he's very good on being for it, and bringing it back to what we've been talking about is that he shared Billboard Chris a video of him basically harassing people. So
Right, right. So this billboard Chris harasses people, gets the video, uploads it. It's a whole grifty game thing that he does. All right, but it's not just anti-trans opinions that he has. He's also has, anti-immigrants, everybody's a communist, some of the other things that we'll see. So this one, when we allow mass migration of illegals, they will not respect our countries. There will be no loyalty. They will be entitled chaos. Looking at you, Europe, US, we are next. Like, this is just nonsense. Like, are you serious right now?
Yeah.
This entire country is nothing but migration.
Yeah.
We're not the natives here, bro.
I would also say, as somebody who's like, again, trying to be pro-military, it's like the percentage of the military that is from an immigrant population is every year increasing. It's quite high now. And that's where they're looking. That's where the military right now is looking to expand their forces, because they do not have, they cannot get enough people. And so, but it's fun that we have, because this is what like the bought and paid portion of the valor that Armed Forces Brewing have, because the guy that actually is the chief executive officer or the CEO of Armed Forces Brewing actually never served. He is not a member of the military. He talks extensively about his Alan Beal talked extensively about his family and about how he comes from a family of military servicemen, which I do as well. My grandfather served in the military. I have like a couple uncles that served, but I would never in a million years think that like I'm going to start up an Armed Forces Brewing company or a military branded company and move into Norfolk, which by the way is like, I would say like Norfolk exists because the military is here. Like this city would just be like a small.
Well, that's sort of what he's trying to get at, because why would buying a brewery become a political thing? It's bizarre. This should not be a news item. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, this feeds into its perfect timing that he's going to do this, because you have the Bud Light. I hate even saying the Bud Light controversy, like it's somehow Bud Light's fault. Not that I wanted the worst beer in America. Like, you have to defend Bud Light. But you have to, but like the idea that like, I think I've had one Bud Light or 2 sips of a Bud Light in my entire life, and I never do it again. But like, never felt more compelled to like buy it. But and then I have still not bought it. But it is shocking that like this goes in hand with why that like I think that this is part of the idea of why Governor Youngkin is going to be pushing this and wants to push this. And is because it feeds right into his thing. And like something that I think we forget about a lot, because we're so focused on people like Governor of Florida, that we forget that like a state like Virginia, which, I think people still have like a strong idea that Virginia is not this like right-wing red state, which I don't think it is. But it is run by Governor Youngkin, who just stripped basically everything LGBTQ kind of preventative, like, oh, if you're feeling unsafe, or do you need, mental health care, something like that, stripped all of that from all of the state websites. And so like he has done as much as he can. There's a Democratic, he doesn't have a full majority in the state, in Richmond. And if he gets it, then the state's going to be like Florida in 20 minutes, like 20 minutes after the election. He's promised abortion is going to be gone. He's promised all these things, but for some reason we still like kind of pretend, kind of like Brian Kemp and John in Georgia. We like to pretend that he's this magical centrist that somehow wins statewide election, but will bring the Republican Party back to what it used to be, which, we've gone on enough rants about like, well, let's go. Right. What did it used to be? Like when was this heart and time? Lincoln?
Lincoln. Yes. Lincoln. We have to go way back. I thought this was a strange one. Argue all you want, but nothing will change until the communists are removed from the polling sites.
Yeah.
What does he mean?
I mean,
does he mean all the Democrats voting are communists, or does he mean the communists are
can't tell
the volunteers at the polling sites? I don't understand what this means.
I couldn't tell myself whether that meant Democrats
Jesus Christ, this
run
tweet has
elections.
So many likes too and views. It's scary.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing that's kind of worrying. And one of the biggest worrying things about this story is the fact that my delegate here in Norfolk, Virginia, Jackie Glass, was one of the people that gave this place an endorsement, and she's a veteran and has
she's
like her
Democrat,
staff
right?
Yeah, she's a Democrat, and she if you can go to her social media, and it is all about being, Pride doesn't end in July. It doesn't end at the end of June, being an ally all year round, which is something that I emailed her and asked her about. I was just like, it is weird that you're doing this. I mean, she made a pretty good statement again.
Wait, hang on. Let's stop for a second. Yeah, why is she endorsing this brew? Like, it's weird enough that we have a governor doing a press release.
This comes down to, she put it off to the fact that she is. I mean, first off, she quoted at this town hall that we'll see a little bit of video of a little bit later, at a town hall that she had a couple days after basically all of this came out, because I sent her. I saw this Sunday night of last week, and sent her a message to her, not her press team, but her own email and state. I was just like, hey, here's all these screenshots. What is going on with your endorsement? Like, you say you have literally your last tweet, your last Instagram post. It's one of her big ways that she sends messaging out is Instagram and Facebook. Okay. And she had, all these posts about supporting Pride, and she ran on LGBT issues, because this area in Norfolk is a very, very, we have Ghent, and it's like our hipster neighborhood. For Norfolk, and I live in a neighborhood literally across the railroad tracks. It's a little bit cheaper neighborhood, but it also is still like, we have progressive businesses. Always put those in quotes, but progressive businesses almost every single business in this community celebrated Pride, had flags out, was just at least did the bare minimum of we support it, and have a poster, have a branding, have a special day where just, whatever, like businesses do. And nobody, it was not, I don't remember, maybe I'm missing something from this past month, but we didn't have any really big controversies or whatever in this area. We are surrounded by, again, Virginia Beach, which has these big issues of, banning books, and Moms for Liberty has chapters all around here. We live in Christian, basically where all the Christian colleges are. There's a couple of them around here. But this little center, this little area where Armed Forces Brewing is going to move in, is literally going dead smack dab in the middle of basically the most progressive spot in basically all of Norfolk. And not necessarily a wealthy area. So it's not one of those whatever, but you have this. And so that was one of the big things, and why our delegate supported this. And she claimed that she just didn't do the due diligence and do it. And she kind of pulled back and kind of said, oh, I'm going to have a town hall later and hear your words, which was fine, except for the fact she literally opened her kind of talk at the town hall with, I still welcome them here because we live in capitalism and we have to share the space or whatever. And it's just you don't have to, you don't have to welcome them here. You don't have to not welcome them here. You just don't have to have an opinion on it, because there's a dozen businesses. Yeah, exactly. There's a dozen businesses. Did she send out a message when the local dentist moved in and say something? No, she didn't. No,
that's what I'm saying. It's very weird to see governors and politicians get involved in the buying of this is just strange.
It's been very, I was very supportive of her, because of her messaging. She came in here, she ran against a guy who basically was a pastor in quotes, a guy that literally has his fellowship in his backyard. And that's who she ran against for here. And so it was thank goodness, because this guy was off his rocker level of homegrown Christianity type of thing. I don't know, describe it that much. But and so she won by big numbers, and she won based on her support basically of progressive ideas. And this was her first thing. And I tell you, she held a town hall at NJ's Tavern, which is a great local, basically it's the LGBT bar for this area. And she held it there, which is, again, she was making a choice on having it there. And that's, basically trying to support it. And she's opened it up with, saying, I don't necessarily, don't want them here because of capitalism, whatever. Very, very centrist, democratic kind of BS that I hate, especially when you're standing up to it. But almost universally, the people were there, which again, it's
why don't we play the clip from that?
Yes. There was one person though that disagreed.
There was.
We appreciate you coming out. And
I'm sure.
I genuinely
do.
No.
No, it's it's the same BS all the time.
If we're gonna move forward, we genuinely have to do that.
My way or the highway.
If we can't do that, then again we get to choose. No, let's not. I genuinely want us to be respectful. right? I genuinely, no, we're not doing that.
This is your diversity.
We're not
This
doing
is your
that.
inclusion.
We're not doing
Where
that.
if somebody doesn't agree with you, they should be
Everybody else got a popsicle stick.
Wait.
No, this is your idea
Allow her
of inclusion.
to walk her way out. Allow her to. Are you getting ready to go, Miss Leslie?
What?
Are you leaving or are you staying?
I'm leaving
Okay.
because
That's okay.
by everything that I already know.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate
That
it.
it's not about diversity.
Thank you for coming
It's
out.
not about inclusion. It's about your way or the highway.
Okay.
It's about this
Okay, I'm gonna carry on.
or not.
I appreciate you. I'm gonna carry on. But I do, like I said, believe every whole hey, let's not ear up. Let's not ear up. But let's not ear up because oftentimes, if you guys listen up. Oftentimes, let me just say this. The very thing that we're speaking against is the very thing that we do. So we also have to kind of look in the mirror and check ourselves to include what is just right. You're not about the. I just said we just agreed that we are not going to agree. And what happens is that sometimes we don't see ourselves doing the same thing that we're saying other folks are doing.
You have become the brown shirt.
What happens? No, it's okay. It's okay. Miss Leslie, kindly, hold up, kindly, Miss, hold on. Hey, Miss Leslie, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. We're gonna move on. Next question. Number 16. Who's number 16? 18. Number 18. That's it? All right. Hey, number 18. No 18? Nope. Oh, great. All right, here we go. Joe, guys. Do you need a popsicle stick? All right, listen up. All right, let the owner deal with her. All right. So, look at us. I need a time check. It is 18:39 or 6:39. Can we say that? 6:39 so I know everybody's up here. 6:39. What time is it? 6:39. 6:39. All right. So that means if there are no more popsicle sticks out there, no more questions, no more comments. Yeah. All right. Hold on. When she leaves. She's gone. All right.
Okay, so many things there. So Leslie comes in there. She has a different opinion than the group that's already mad. And we're going to placate Leslie and ignore the other 100 people there. As Leslie say, the problem isn't diversity. It's that it's your way or the highway. No, Leslie, It's the opposite that's true. Leslie, you want it your way. You only want it your way. And you don't care what anybody else thinks about that. So, like every accusation is a projection at this point. But more importantly, like, why are we having town halls about a dude buying a bar? Like, again, this is not normal. Like, this is not normally be a newsworthy item.
It's sad. I should note that she already, she was one of the first 10 people to speak. There's basically 18 people ended up speaking, including myself, because I'm her constituent and I spoke. And every single person was supportive except for her, but she had her moment, and she also had a long time, which was very fair by Jackie Glass to give her more time because she was the only person that disagreed, that at least spoke up, that said anything. But once she stopped, I was standing next to her, that's how the wide shot there of when it starts, that's how far away I was, and she's just commenting under her breath the entire time. She had also
Leslie was commenting under her breath.
She was commenting, loud enough that I could hear her in a very loud space. I was standing. The audio is so terrible on that because I'm standing right next to the speaker there.
I got you.
And it's a bar, it's a bar audio setup.
Yeah, they don't have a vault box.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, no. I'm very happy that I was just recording the audio with my cell phone, and then I was just I feel like I should go grab my camera because I feel like something might happen, and I was right. But she had spoken, and she was given quite a bit of time to kind of like back and forth and talk. And she was like, again, ranting about gay culture. It was never like gay people, never was the culture you're getting pushing on us or whatever. She wasn't from the
Nobody
area.
is pushing that culture on you, Leslie. Just don't take
It's
part
just
in
like,
it.
again, you decided to move into the most progressive area in the town. And like, it's also one of the nicest parts of Norfolk as well. That it's not like industrial strip malls and stuff like that, which is basically the rest of Norfolk, which I love this town. But like, it's the nicest part of Norfolk. And part of the reason it's the nicest part of Norfolk is that it has a culture, which is gay sometimes. And so, but she, you know, I mean, the fact that she like pulled out the "You have become the brown shirts," she had
I heard her say
to her
that.
credits, or what detriment, she had a couple glasses of white wine along the way. Other people said that she was intoxicated. Also, other people said on her way out she hit a car. And I honestly was deeply, the person you see in that video ushering her out in the blue, I think it was blue bolo shirt, is what the head manager and kind of the father of the owner of the place. And he was being very kind and like ushering out, because again, he had, you know, every right to boot her the hell out of a very welcoming, safe space, which is known as this place. Yeah.
I guess it's interesting that, you know, this became like a political hot point, you know, locally there in Virginia, and obviously getting picked up by other outlets. It's just wild because normally this would not be newsworthy. But I think what's interesting about it, it's sort of a microcosm into the culture wars that are happening across the country right now, right? So this little scene that we just watched that happens to be Norfolk, Virginia, and only happens across the country, right? This is it just doesn't get picked on because you don't have governors doing press releases on its behalf. But
I'll say that we just got our area. I don't think it would be in Jackie's or in my delegate district here, but we just got a Black Rifle Coffee down the street as well. And so it's like maybe like a mile away from here, which is also another, it's like all the rebranding of like, you're not going to support Starbucks, so support this gun culture, which I love that even they're not far enough away. They're not far enough right, because when they said we decry, because there was a famous photo of somebody wearing a Black Rifle Coffee shirt at January 6th, they spoke out and got basically lambasted in the far right media for saying, hey, we don't support January 6th.
We don't support insurrection.
That's the lie. It's like, yeah, we don't support an active violent insurrection. We're just a Black Rifle Coffee company, and you know, we support army. And one of the big problems as well in this area is that we have a huge gun issue. We have a huge murder issue. We have a mass shooting, I would say, once a week in this town. You know, like 3 people getting shot, like not deaths, thankfully, but like we have a lot of really big problem across here, because it's a military to every single person has a gun. We have shootings. It's
multiple
just like
guns, probably.
Somebody else brought up at this town hall, it's like, do we need another place that celebrates, you know, basically gun culture in a different way? And mind you, again, they're hiding behind the Armed Forces Brewing, even though once again, I want to harp on this, their owner is doing stolen valor.
They're just it's stolen valor. I 100% get that.
Yeah.
So all right, we're gonna move on to Right Wing Insanity Roundup, which I'm going to dedicate the entire Right Wing Insanity Roundup to one guy, because he's just owning it this week in a big way, and that's Tuberville. Before we do though, everybody make sure you smash the like button. If you haven't shared the stream already, please do. Colin, are there any super chats or comments that we want to take a look at before we move on to Right Wing Insanity? I wanted to check on that. Yes, okay. Hey, Tony D, how are you, Tony D? Any update on SAG and WGA strike? Yes, I'm officially on strike as of midnight last night. YouTube's not part of SAG, though, so I can do the show. Thank God. But yeah, so the SAG is absolutely on strike right now. So they are at the picket lines today with the WGA. WGA at 9 locations, all the studio locations, Netflix, Fox, Disney, all of those places. I will definitely be going out and getting some video of that next week. I just obviously couldn't today because I had the show here with you guys, Right Wing Insanity. But yeah, so this is the first time, let's be clear, this is the first time in 63 years you have had 2 Hollywood guilds on strike at the same time. So Writers Guild and SAG. So we'll see where that goes. You know, the studio execs are acting like absolute vampires. They don't want to give anybody a pay raise. Their response on the AI was, believe it or not, like, okay, here's our offer on the AI. we will pay the background rate to scan each actor once, and then we want usage rights for perpetuity. Now, let's be clear. The background rate for one day is like $130. Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
That's madness. That's madness.
They also, you know, like pushing out through the Hollywood trades, which is something as person I used to work for an entertainment site. And I love the fact that the people are finally really figuring out, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter, all these, the trades are actually just industry, are just like studio press release firms. Because like some of the messaging, like, I don't know if you saw that interview with Matt Damon, they did on the red carpet, where like Hollywood, I think it was a Hollywood Reporter, I forget which one, or maybe Variety, literally misquoted him saying, "Oh, we just started a new studio and it's really going to hurt us." And that was the pull quote, as opposed to, but basically we all got to pull together, basically, because this is really important. Because Matt Damon, whatever you feel about Matt Damon, he has always been a very pro-union person. He comes from a teaching,
Hell, 100% he is. Yeah. Anyway. It's crazy, but that's what happens, right? So there's your update on that. Colin, any others, or we're good? Guess we're good. All right. So right wing, we're good. Yeah. Right wing insanity roundup, Tuberville. I'm just going to dedicate this entire section. I normally have like a various videos that we show and whatnot, but he's just owning it this week. So Tuberville, Alabama politician. You know, we talked about him a couple of weeks ago, but he's doubling down on his idea that white supremacists are Americans. They're not necessarily racist. I mean, this is just a crazy statement. So let's play this first video clip.
But just to be clear, you agree that white nationalists should not be serving in the U.S. military. Is that what you're saying?
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they should.
A white nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion. And I don't think,
That's
I mean,
not
a lot.
opinion.
Pardon?
What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him white nationalist, to me is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything that they want to do, because I am 110% against racism. But I want somebody that's in our military, that's strong, that believes in this country, that's an American, that will fight along anybody, whether it's a man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference. And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this, because it's dividing this country and it's making this country weaker every day.
I'm against identity politics unless, of course, it's white identity politics. Then I'm all for it, and it's just an opinion if you think white nationalists are racist. What is he fucking saying?
Yeah. Well, he's saying the quiet part out loud. I mean, I one thing that, like, it's I almost welcome that when that happens. I'd almost rather them say that you want the endorsement of white nationalists, and that again, like, he started, white nationalists are racist. And if that's the thing, but then backtracked and was like, well,
I love that she said that's not an opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. This coming, by the way, like, it's like she's a former Daily Caller reporter too, that has written some of the most vile garbage on the face of the earth, but for some reason has a CNN job interviewing the presidents and senators.
Well, that's because the new CNN news director is from that world, but we'll table that for another day. But
it's wild that he can keep, I mean, he's just keeping this up. I mean, he once again was confronted on CNN, I think just today, and again he was just like, yeah, if you want me to say it's racist, and like, okay, but then the follow-up is, okay, do you think that racists should be in the United States military? It's like, basically yes, because they're Americans. Wait a minute, like,
no part of this makes sense. It's just insane. It's just absolutely insane. Let's play the next clip before I introduce the second part of this, though, is he's now holding up military appointments because of abortion. But let's play this next clip.
Say that they're violating the law, but the Pentagon policy, there's an opinion from the Justice Department that says it doesn't violate the law because they're not actually paying for abortions. They're paying for the travel to get there. I'm quoting from the policy now. It says the non-covered reproductive health care is at the service member's expense. So that would seem to say that they're not violating the law, which is your whole premise for blocking all the nominations.
Well, first of all, I wouldn't trust this Department of Justice as far as I could throw them. But they look at it different. I look at it as a law. A law is legislated through Congress. Now, this was a law. It was voted on by Joe Biden in 1985, and it passed. And so it's got to be a law. So to change that law, it's got to go back through Congress.
But what you're referencing the Hyde Amendment, but this is not explicitly paying for abortions. It's paying for the time off and for their services. But regardless, even if you disagree with their position on this, their policy, a colonel who is waiting to be promoted to a one-star general has no say over what the Pentagon's policy is. So why are you holding these officers responsible for the actions of political and civilian appointees? When you're in a minority in the Senate, it's the only power that you have to get people's attention, to get them to do it the right way, to go by the Constitution. The only power we have is to put a hold on something. And so we thought that this would get the attention of the Secretary of Defense. I told him back in December, now, if you do this, I'm going to put a hold on all your admirals and generals. I didn't hear from him for 2 months. He put the order through, just through a memo instead of a law. He changed it. That's unlawful. To make it law, you've got to go through Congress. And we're trying to teach them that you cannot legislate from the Pentagon. And so it's a tough situation. And there's nobody more military than me, Caitlin. My dad was military, career military. I'm all for the military. We need a strong military, but we also need to go by the rules in the Constitution and represent the people and taxpayers. Taxpayers are not supposed to pay for anything that has to do with abortion.
We're doing this again. I mean, like, it's just, this is.
You can't legislate from the Pentagon. What? All right, so let's backtrack for a second. I have to laugh because he just keeps contradicting himself, right? So nobody's legislating from the Pentagon. They are absolutely following the letter of the law. He's mad because the guy didn't get back to him in his 90 days and he gave a threat, and now he's following through on the threat. So, like, this one guy right now is holding up all of these military promotions, like, for everybody. Like, this is insane. And the repercussions from that are that there are, like, you know, soldiers that aren't knowing where they're going to be in 6 months. They can't enroll their kids in school. They don't know where they're going to be living. Like, it's causing a lot of problems. It's entirely unnecessary. And all that's getting paid for is some travel costs. Like, nobody is getting abortions on the government dime. Like, it's
to
just
go get health care. Again, like, if the they would probably cover if they needed to go get their arm amputated or something like that, but they can't do it in Guam, so they have to do.
Yeah, he's politicizing this. Tuberville, let's be clear, he's politicizing it. And
it's just about abortion. That's all that matters, and we have to control every level of it, including, you know, that. Yeah. So and it's sad that we're still doing this. Like, first off, the Hyde Amendment should have been erased from memory 30 years ago when Bill Clinton, or when I forget.
Listen, Democrats. Democrats also supported.
We for some reason, like, not just, even though we've had control, you know, we've had multiple administrations that supposedly support the right.
King voted for the Hyde Amendment. But that's the problem. A lot of Democrats supported the Hyde Amendment. This was, you know, something that was bipartisan, and so now it's coming back to rear its ugly head. But
like,
this is
they
history.
usually do. Exactly. But it's sad. It's
repeat,
sad that
wash, rinse, repeat. You know.
The biggest thing out of this, though, is the fact that, like, it's really showing that they'll use anything for their culture war. And usually the military used to be like, I mean, at some point in history, it was like the third rail. You're not gonna mess with that,
especially if you were a Republican, right?
Yeah, especially, and you had to, you know, if you're a Democrat, you had to harp on it even more, that the military are heroes, and no matter, you can't touch them in any way, shape, and form. But I mean, like, the fact that you would hold up more than just performatively or something like that, just be like, oh, I'm going to hold it for a day and then move on. Maybe you do that. But I mean, I just think about, like, all the things that, like, you know, whether Bernie Sanders, AOC have tried to, like, hold up in different ways, and the way they've been, like, lambasted, like, completely on doing it, just to say, hey, maybe we don't need another, you know, $100 billion to the war machine. But
exactly.
Okay. Like, but this guy's doing it. So good on him, stopping the war machine. Good job, Tuberville, who says that he knows more about Black people because he's coached them in college football than anyone else in the. But hang
on, let's be clear. He's not stopping the war machine at all. Like, I mean, if he was, I know. But you know what I'm saying? I mean, we should stop the war machine.
No, he's just making it really annoying for a small group of people.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is just wild to me. But
it is wild. All right. Let's move on to the next clip. I'm just going to keep playing these Tuberville clips.
You have probably been hearing a lot about Senator Tuberville lately for insisting that white nationalists are just American. Tuberville has also been holding up hundreds of top military promotions because he wants to impose forced birth on every American service member and their families. About 40% of all women in active duty or DoD civilian jobs now have limited or no access to abortions, a RAND study shows. But Senator Tuberville is determined to grind the American defense apparatus to a halt so he can force those women to carry pregnancies to term against their will.
There's so many things that I think that he is doing that, quite frankly, Chris, is just embarrassing to the state. Even though there are so many people that might say they support it, I don't think they really fully appreciate, especially on the nominations process, what he's doing. We've got a state that is a strong military presence, strong veteran presence. They understand the need to have these generals promoted, to have them go up the chain, how important that is to morale. That's incredibly important. And the thing involving the abortion policy, Chris, it's not really completely a new policy in the sense that the Department of Defense has paid for people to go out of state, out of area if it was needed. That's a policy that's been in effect because we've got to support our military. We've got to support folks. So this is nothing really new. I really think that this is an attack, again, on women. I don't think he likes them in the service, doesn't want them in the service, and he's doing what he can to drive them out.
Okay, so he's right on that. Tuberville does not think women belong in military service. So that might be partially what's driving this. But I think it's more this, Christian fundamentalist nationalism where they just want abortion to be illegal and women shouldn't have abortions, et cetera. But what I'm finding interesting, this is Doug Jones. I'm going to play a couple more clips. He's getting lambasted from every single political side of the spectrum, like the whole thing, right? Yeah. So he's now made a move that everybody's like, this is probably not a good idea.
It's not cool, guys.
Cool,
you're showing our cards a little bit too much. We can't go after the military in this way. Let's move on.
Really, and you're right. When you have somebody that comes from extreme right-wing media who's now on CNN basically say, bro, no, white nationalists are racist. That's not a crazy statement. So let's play the next one. Okay. One would think, but who knows? We're in 2023.
The solution is take the policy, go back the way it was, and then send us a bill and let everybody vote on it. It's that simple. But it's not a one-way street here. There's two sides to this. So let's work this out. Let's let the American people, their representatives, vote on what they're trying to do with this bill that they changed with a memo.
Is there any middle ground between your position and...
No middle ground. The middle ground is move it back and let's vote on it then.
So, okay, number one, they didn't change the legislation with a memo. That's just a talking point. Here we hear this two sides thing again. Sometimes there just isn't two sides. There just isn't, Tommy. You're on your own here. Your position is incorrect. It's that simple. And now you're going to hold everything hostage because of course you are. This is 2023.
And remember, Democrats are supposed to be the leftists who won't move on anything and won't, and have opinions that are immovable and won't work won't allow government to work because they won't compromise on their culture issues. And this is the thing that's you listen to what he says is that there's no compromise on this issue, which, to be fair, if you believe the anti-abortion talking points you ever you believe that if you don't fight hard enough, you're going to go to hell and everything like that a lot of these people do, then you have to fight it. But again, that's
but hang on, let me stop you there because my concern there is even if you do believe those things, I'm going to say that's bullshit, and I'll tell you why. We still have a separation of church and state in this country, and I don't think any part of our government should be taking in consideration religious beliefs. And also, if you are, let me say this: in Judaism, abortion is part of our religion, right? If a woman is in danger of dying if she's pregnant or having a baby, it is within her rights to have an abortion, and that's what should happen. So not all religions see abortion the same way. And I don't see anybody else taking, the Jewish position into consideration when they're talking about abortion laws. It's only the Christian theocracy that gets taken into consideration. So, but what I'm getting at is secular government is really required if you want to have religious freedom. You cannot have it both ways. You must have tolerance for everybody's beliefs. And the only way to go about that is to have no religion in government. That was my little.
But you'd have to think that Tuberville believes that there's other religions that should be recognized, or that there's other religions that are worth anything. And
right, and he doesn't.
That's the inherent problem.
None of them do.
That
right?
used to be at least like kind of a line. At least like there's a small time period.
No, they've re-raised that. They're being honest about it now, at least. Yeah, they're like, no, we want Christian theocracy. That's what we want. You're right. You're right.
Yep.
All right, next clip. I wanted to play this clip. This is Tammy Duckworth. Obviously, not only is she a politician, but she is also ex-military. So she had something to say about the repercussions of what he's doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to correct a record here. Senator Tuberville has been given multiple off-ramps. He was offered a vote on Senator Ernst's bill, which was much more overall encompassing. He has been given lots of opportunities, and he's simply refusing to lift a hold. For the first time in over 100 years, we do not have a commandant of the Marine Corps, someone who can have the full power and authority of a commandant. This is absolutely unacceptable. We have all of these officers and their families. My colleagues talk about and laud the family members for their service. We have family members who are being pulled out of schools, unable to start a new school term. We have spouses who cannot start a new job, who've lost their jobs. The entire military readiness is slowly grinding to a halt, and it is going to get worse every single day because Senator Tuberville has injected politics into this. And let me make it clear, DOD statute is very clear. The DOD cannot fund abortions, and the DOD is not funding abortions. The DOD is simply providing the ability for service members to travel to a different state from the one in which they are assigned in order to receive reproductive health care. The DOD is not paying for those abortions. They're simply saying if you cannot get the reproductive health care you need, whether that is an abortion or IVF or an IUD or whatever that is, then you should be able to travel someplace for that. And you know who gets hurt the most on this? Our lowest ranking. It is the youngest women in the military. It is the spouses of the youngest men in the military who have to ask for a pass from their sergeants to leave their duty station so that they can go take care of their health care needs. And what we are telling them, what Senator Tuberville is telling them is, I don't care about you. Thank you for your service, but you cannot take care of your own health care or your spouse's health care. And to simply put this as this is a political thing and this is about the military providing abortion is absolutely categorically untrue because the military is not providing abortions in this instance. Now, let me also be clear that our men and women in uniform face so many hardships. They should be able to take care of themselves and their family members. Bottom line. And if there's anybody that's injecting politics into this, it's Senator Tuberville, who is fundraising. He's fundraising off of his hold on the military leadership that is affecting the national security of this country. If he truly cared about this, he wouldn't be fundraising off of it. That is my rant.
That was a good rant. I gotta give Tammy a. She's really got at it. Yeah. She's always good, but yeah, I mean, she makes a good point. She's harming individuals, and and this is just his ideological battle. He's using it to raise money from the culture warriors for his next election campaign, and in the meantime, this is actually hurting people. I do want to read this. Humorist made a really good point in the chat. I'm going to scroll up here if I can. Why does my scroll never work properly on YouTube? Colin, can you put up that humorist chat about the only place we have separation of... Oh, here it is. I found it. Wait, no, I went too far. Oh, there you go. We do not have a separation of church and state in the country. The only place that even exists is literally in our Constitution, which everyone seems to ignore. I got to say, humorist has a point here. It is in our Constitution, but how often is our Constitution ignored for better or for worse? All men are created equal.
Yeah,
they actually mean all men when they said all men. I no, they didn't. They meant white male property owners, but it does say all men are created equal, right? So,
yeah.
Good point.
But this whole conversation about because again, obviously this is anti-abortion, but again, the behind kind of the messaging behind it is that they want a very particular type. They dream of somehow a very particular type of military. White men are not joining the military that they want is white, purebred American men that are over 6'3" and basically all look like
white nationalists.
Yeah, but I mean, like it's just because there's a quote that like I've always been like, this is what the military that they want. And this is like going back 2 years, December. Tucker Carlson. This is from a Rolling Stone article. Jesse Kelly was on Tucker Carlson saying, "We need a military full of type A men who want to sit on a throne of Chinese skulls."
Good God.
Yeah, and like so, it's just like this is like I see this a lot at all these different places. That this is what the military that they want. They really hate the idea that trans people are serving in the military. They hate this messaging. That was one of the things that the Moms for Liberty, I forget which speaker, like kind of really brought that up. Is the fact like there's a trans person that's doing outreach, and it's like, guys, do you not understand like how like the military can't be like kind of like they're not trying not to be too loud about the fact that they don't have enough people. Joe Biden just sent out President Biden just sent out a message. I think it was a presidential decree basically re-upping Coast Guard troops. Coast Guardsmen being basically if you're a reservist, like basically there's only a certain amount of time that you can spend like as a reservist, but of course there's a presidential waiver basically to extend it because we're so the Coast Guard is basically desperate. Like I think that like if you're no matter what you are, I'm sure that there's still like a kind of a level that they will of people that unhealthiness or whatever that they won't let in or whatever, but like they are desperate for people and they're so understaffed, and that's just one branch of the military. It's usually also one of the easiest branches to get people because it's not you're going to go to Fallujah and kick down doors type of thing. So
right. So I'm going to end the section with our president even chiming in on this. He's in Helsinki, Finland, and he apparently felt the need to chime in on this. Let's play that.
I could also ask you something about happening back home. You're seeing the GOP grappling with tying abortion rights to defense issues, including a block on military promotions by Senator Tuberville. What does this say about U.S. military readiness? And would you be willing to talk with Tuberville to try to work out some solution?
I'd be willing to talk to him if I thought there's any possibility of him changing this ridiculous position he has. He's jeopardizing U.S. security by what he's doing. I expect the Republican Party to stand up and do something about it. It's in their power to do that. The idea that we don't have a chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the idea that we have all these promotions that are in abeyance right now, that we don't know what's going to happen, the idea that we're injecting into fundamental foreign policy decisions what in fact as a domestic social debate on social issues is bizarre. I don't ever recall that happening, ever. And it's just totally irresponsible in my view. And I just think that, I'm confident that the mainstream of the Republican Party no longer does not support what he's doing. But they got to stand up and be counted. That's how it ends.
That's how it ends, Zach.
That's how it's all gonna end. But yeah, it's that like I will say at least Biden is finally at least in this moment finally realized that there's the Republican Party is not a party that he can work with. Like that was the whole point of him being president supposedly was that I'm the only guy that's going to be able to wrangle in these Republicans, and like that he's just like it's not even worth it to talk to this person because it's all matter.
Although at the same time they enable a lot of the Republican policy wants because they have the same, if it comes to workers' rights or whatnot, they're just going to be like,
yeah. I'm still waiting for Biden to come in and help end the strikes, terrified the same way that he ended the railroad strikes by saying, y'all can't do that anymore.
It was horrifying that he did that. We'll table that for another day, but it was horrifying that he did that. Any parting thoughts?
There's just one of the things is like go to your local school board, please, because these people everything we talked about for the last year, they're all going to the school board, whether it be Proud Boys, whether it be Moms for Liberty, whether it be Moms for America, whether it be people that support people like Tuberville. They're showing up there and they're deciding what your kids kids are learning.
School boards have become war zones.
Terrorizing the school boards as well.
Yeah,
like the people are quitting. And the only way this country holds together or whatever is if we have good public education that is teaching kids at least enough of a version of the reality of our own history and like what we need. And it's not teaching a like Christian ideologue, education plan, if you can call it that. And so if we don't have that, then we don't have anything. So
I agree. I don't disagree. Chris Garrett, I want to thank you. $5 from Chris Garrett. He wanted to send us some love for this the week's Right Wing Insanity Report. We appreciate the super chat. So everybody, thanks for joining us today. It's been a wonderful Friday spending it with you. Now go out, give your loved ones a hug, and relax and enjoy your weekends.